Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm very excited because tonight's guest, she's done it all. She's an actress, a stage performer, a writer, an author. You name it, this amazing woman has done it. She's an Emmy Award winning actress as well. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the one and only Carolyn Hennesy. Carolyn, thank you for coming on today. It's a real honor for me.
Hey, thank you for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
So, Carolyn, we're going to get to your stage career, which I believe is over 100 productions. But how did the love, let's just say performing in general, when did that begin for you?
Oh, I was at the age of 4.
Yeah.
Seriously. Because my mother's older sister was an actress named Barbara Rush. And that was all well and good, and she was very big in the 50s and 60s and 70s on various episodic television, but I was never really kind of part of her particular world. Instead, my love began with my father, and my father was a motion picture production designer. So I was introduced to the world of the soundstage and filming when I was 4 years old and visited my father for the first time at work. And it was on the set of a film called Fantastic Voyage. And I said, well, this is it. I don't know what's done in this big dark room, but I'm going to do it. Something here. I'm going to live here because it just felt like home to me. So I fortunately have a bit of a proclivity for an inclination toward acting, and so that's when it started, very very young. And I realized, I think, quickly, that the best way to prepare for a career in television and film was to learn on the stage. That's where it all kind of really starts, and so that's what I did.
Right. And let me ask you, would you say like 10 or 11 years old, you were doing stage performances?
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely.
right. And the thing is, Carolyn, I say this to a lot of guests who have done stage. What people tend to forget is when you're filming something, you're always recording it. So if you mess up, you could fix it and stuff like that. But when you're on stage, everything, it's true what they say. You can't mess up when it's live. So like you just got to go out there and do it. But sometimes it can be nerve wracking because you almost have to be perfect in an imperfect type of.
Yes, you do. Unless you can figure out a way to get yourself out of it, unless you have compatriots on the stage with you who can see the terror in your eyes when you go up, and they will help you. They'll you can and if you can always work together. Um, I would say 99 times out of 100, you can always work together, get yourself out of it. Someone else can get yourself out of it. You can go back to another line. Very often, if you just fail and you make a mistake and you pretend like it wasn't a mistake and you fail big, the audience never knows.
Right.
So if you've got, that kind of confidence and chutzpah and bravado behind you, very often you can make it work, and if you do, okay, everyone fails, everyone makes a mistake. So and my philosophy is always, guess what, actor, audience, sun's going to come up tomorrow, it's all fine. If this is the most devastating thing that happens to you in your life as an audience member or as an actor, boy, you got it made. So I think it's just a very easy way to take the pressure off. Which is, of course, not to say that you don't strive to have every line and moment memorized. I mean, that's what you have rehearsal for. But every once in a while, something happens. So
Right.
you just gotta say, okay, you know what? Enough. Life goes on. Let's not, we don't beat ourselves up too much.
And the other,
Unless, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And the other thing, Carolyn, when you do stage, most of the time you're going to sing. That's what stage is. That's what makes stage so fun to watch, especially Broadway and things of that nature. So, you have to know how to sing as well. I mean, did you take singing lessons as a kid too?
I took singing lessons. I think I had voice at American Conservatory Theater. It was more stage voice than it was singing, but singing like early on, and then just sort of left off of it up until about 5 years ago. So I had all of the performing, the groundwork of the performing behind me, and then I kind of came at it sort of strangely circular or backwards. So no, I didn't. I mean, just a minor. I knew I could sing, but fortunately I had the performance background to augment whatever was lacking in the voice, when I started really kind of started really singing about 5 years ago. So as I say, I may not, sing like, Patti LuPone or Barbara Streisand, but I can sell a song to anybody. So what I make up in lack of, what I lack in vocal, I make up in just, you will believe, on stage. So
Right. And now let me ask you, in high school, did you do a lot of performances, plays and things of that uh
sure,
nature?
sure.
I mean, again, I feel like this is something you've been doing your entire life.
I kind of have. I did a lot in high school, a lot in junior high school, but every summer, the thing that really kind of stood me in very good stead when I went to American Conservatory Theater and then on to university and then to the Royal Academy, I did a thing called the Teenage Drama Workshop
Yeah.
out at California State University, Northridge, which was different then than it is now. Now call it TADWA, and it's like, just call it the Teenage Drama Workshop. TADWA is so clumsy, but apparently now they divide you into the performing group and the technical group, which to me is not conducive to a well-rounded theater denizen. When I was there, we not only were on stage, but we ran lights and sound, and we built the sets, and we built the costumes, and we assistant directed, and we just stage managed. So we knew every aspect, or almost every aspect, of what it takes to put on a theatrical production before we ever were paid for it. So when we went in, or when I went in, let's all speak for myself. When I went into my first professional theatrical experience, and then of course you extrapolate that into a film experience, you have an innate respect for what everybody else is doing. Nobody is, oh well, that's just costumes, or oh well, that's just catering, or that's just craft service. No, they're actually far more important than any actor will ever be. Far
Right.
more.
Yeah,
And
go ahead.
and also, and when you get, as you keep going along and you get more experience and they get more experience, the vanities with the, makeup and hair and wardrobe costumes, they've and especially the technical, they've seen it all. And so any actor that comes in with any sort of ego, it's just like, they couldn't care less. They've
Right.
seen it all, and you're nothing special unless you treat them with the respect that they deserve, and then you become a god. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because they're so used to actors having this oversized, ridiculous ego, these egos that don't look at them, whereas they're the ones to be revered. They are the ones to be revered. So when you say, hey, look, you know what, I'm going to come and eat with you. Can I eat with you guys? Can we have lunch together? Or can I, it's like, I put my pants on just the way you do. They worship that, because again, actors are nothing special to them. And the ones with the big egos, they shouldn't be. So when you treat them like humans, they thrill to that. And you shouldn't treat them you shouldn't treat them as human beings to get anything from them. It's because they are, and they'll be your best friends. They'll be your best friends. So it's very symbiotic.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah.
one of the things that really shows the type of talented individual you are is one show during a break, you did a dance during that break without using your feet, which I thought was unbelievable. Explain that. You did everything with
Dance.
the dance break, but without using your feet.
Wait a minute. I'm not quite sure exactly what you're talking about.
I read that there was one of your shows in between breaks. You did a dance and you showed the crowd you could do a dance without using your feet. Maybe
I,
I'm wrong, but that was what I read. So
is this? I don't know what you're talking. I
okay,
did it.
so
I
maybe
could
it
do a
didn't.
dance without using my feet.
Yeah, it was something that you were you added something outside the box. But you know what? If you don't remember, then
Was this? Is this during one of my cabaret shows?
yes, yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
okay, that's fine.
I would.
We'll move on.
I would love to know because
Yeah,
now I would like to know how to do a dance without using my feet.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah. That's what when I read it, that's what it said. So
Okay.
you
All
know,
right.
but we'll move on from there. But let me ask
Okay.
you, now you did all these cabaret performances, but you also decided, you wanted to do the big screen, you wanted to do TV and stuff like that. And who can forget your performance? It was a recurring role, but as Mrs. Valentine on Dawson's Creek.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Let me tell you this: when Dawson's Creek came out in 1997, I mean, that show was as big as any show at the time, and it was really WB's first big show, I would say, because
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like a Beverly Hills 90210 type of show. But I mean, James Van Der Beek and Katie Holmes, they were awesome on there. But just talk about working on that show.
Oh well, it was my first time really on location. Well, where was it? Wilmington, North Carolina.
Yeah,
And they just built these wonderful studios, but we weren't in the studios. We were at this yacht club, and so I was running the yacht club. Mrs. Valentine, who ran the yacht club for on the show, and she was the sort of the love to hater Mrs. Valentine, and who was giving Joey, played by Katie Holmes, all this grief. And she was this wonderful, very sort of misunderstood evil character. Was she really evil, or was she just kind of this, damaged, broken individual who would get her, she would be so awful to Joey every episode, and then she'd get her comeuppance, every episode. So you kind of love to hate her and love to watch her kind of be brought up short. But it was great. It was great. They fly me every week, or sometimes I would be there in Wilmington for 2 weeks, and I got to know Wilmington, very, very well. And it was just a lot of fun to be on location, and a lot of fun to be with these kids, and I remember once coming home on a plane back to Los Angeles, and Katie Holmes happened to be sitting, like, the row in front of me, off on the aisle on the other side, and she was trying to memorize some lines or something like that, and she turned back to me and she said, "Does it ever get any easier?" And I went, "Oh, honey." I said, "Oh, honey. Oh, Katie, you gorgeous thing. You're going to be just fine." Katie
yeah,
Holmes, as she goes off and marries Tom Cruise and has this fabulous career. And I wanted to say, yes, Katie, for you, it's going to be, I think, fairly easy. It's for me, maybe not, but for you, it's going to be easy. So it's like, take a look in the mirror, Katie. You're gorgeous. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
right.
So
And would you say that was like the first kind of big break in TV you had? I mean, you'd probably done guest spots and stuff, but really that's where I think fans really got to know
I
who
think
you
so.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that was like your first, rise to
With any
fame.
longevity. Yeah. I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, that was like I said, an important series, and it's shown somewhere in the world today. I mean, it's still on like a bunch of streaming networks, so it's on every day. It's probably on right now.
Oh
Somebody's probably
yeah.
watching.
I still get residuals from Dawson's Creek. Of course, now, they'll buy me a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sun never sets on Dawson's Creek, as it were.
Right. You know what fascinates me about you, though, Carolyn, is these children books you wrote based on the character Pandora. And
Mhm.
I mean, so many of them. I think Pandora Gets Jealous was the first one.
It was.
Let's talk about what the inspiration was for you to do these books and how rewarding has it been, because you've done about what, 8 or 9 of them, maybe.
Seven.
Yeah,
There were
7.
7 in that particular
Yeah.
series. Yes. I've always been fascinated. I've just been a devotee of Greek and Roman mythology, especially Greek mythology, and minored in it at university. And so I happened to be writing a series of very short stories based on misunderstood women in fiction, kind of like Elphaba in Gregory Maguire's Wicked, but very, very short, like, 5 pages each. And one of these stories was Pandora, and as people who know Greek mythology know that Pandora was kind of a fully formed grown woman who was sent down to earth by the gods, and she had insatiable curiosity and this box and in it were all the evils in the world, and she was told, okay, Pandora, you can do anything you want, can't open the box. And of course, what does she do? She opens the box. And that's, according to the Greeks, how they explained why we have all the evil in the world. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Of course, they're going to put it on the shoulders of one woman. Interesting. So I wrote a very short story about Pandora. And in my short story, she's a 13-year-old girl who just happens to, finds the box of evil, in her parents' bedroom one day, and her father's Prometheus, and he's keeping this box of evil, from getting out into the world. And she finds it. She takes it to school for a big, show and tell project at school, and all hell breaks loose. And I had a visiting author in this particular workshop where I was kind of, working on these stories. He heard me read the story, and he said, "Oh, wow, that's a novel for young adults. That doesn't need to be like a little 5-page short story." And I said, "All right, well, maybe it can be a series of novels." And so I picked, the 7 great evils that were in the box. And so again, she takes the box to school. She finds, I just sort of I made it larger. And so I put a book for every evil. And so she lets all the evils get out, and Zeus hauls her up to Mount Olympus and says, "Okay, here's the deal. You let all these things go. Now your choice is you have to go and get them all back, or you have to suffer the tortures and torments of the underworld, the flame pits of Tartarus. So what's your choice going to be?" And she says, "Okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to try and get them all back." So she kind of steps up to the plate and takes responsibility. And she and her best friends go off and try and get all of these evils back in the box. And so 7 books, 7 great evils. And, maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. We know she at least gets 6 of them back. So there's that. But it's a lot of fun.
And the thing is, Carolyn, what a lot of people realize about these children's books is you want kids to always read. It's important that they read when they're kids. And a lot of times if they're going to read, they have to get into a book they like. It's not easy. It's not easy for them to just read a book that they're assigned in school to do. So a lot of times they'll go to these book fairs, they'll buy books like this. And what you're really doing is you're getting them into a story that you wrote, that you put your heart and soul into, but you're also helping them to, read and be better at what they do, because they're reading these books, they're into them, and really you're encouraging them to sit down and read a book.
You're absolutely reading first and foremost, but then what's the message that if they're going to be reading, they're going to be absorbing what you wrote. So you have to you have to be very responsible with the message that you're putting out there. So not only are they developing reading skills and more mature reading skills, but okay, here's a book on, first of all, it's girls to the front because it's Pandora. It's and her 2 best friends. So it's, girl power. And what I see so much of, and certainly when I was writing the book, and even more so today, is, okay, I don't want to take responsibility for anything I do. No personal responsibility. Pass the buck. It's always somebody else's fault. No, we all make mistakes. But the only way that we learn and grow from them is to accept that we've done this, figure out how to make it right, figure out what we can do better. And so that's the big lesson. And sometimes the whole tagline for this series in total is, when you step up to the plate, you're human, you make mistakes, you take responsibility, you try and make it right. And sometimes when you do that, you get to save the world. And isn't that exciting? So yeah, Pandora has to save the world. And she does. Oh, I spoiled it. Oh well, whatever.
And
Yeah.
how much do you get into doing this when you're writing a story like this? I mean, you're trying to tell an audience, or readers, I should say, your story. You know, you're kind of like painting the picture for us. But how much do you get into it as you're doing it? You must
Oh,
be like, so like, it
oh,
must be like a rush.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll in it's I had the most fun. I giggled, I cried, and these characters, I mean, I was kind of in charge of these characters, or were they actually in charge of me and kind of telling me where they were going to take me? Because I could plot out a book, but halfway through book 4, something really drastic and dire happens. And I was just, as I was typing it, I was just sobbing. And there were 3 more books I had to write. But when book 4 came out, I had librarians and mothers and daughters and aunts and sisters and boys writing to me saying, do you know what you've done? Or do you know what my daughter is going through? She's beside herself. She can't believe what you did in this book. And I said, okay, look, first of all, did you read the epilogue? Really?
Yeah.
Do you think I would leave it like this? So yeah, my heart and soul goes into this, but I'm right there with you. And of course, things resolve themselves as they do. But I had the best time. I think, creatively speaking, it's without question the best thing I've ever done.
Right.
People can point to various performances and say, wow, this moved me, or this was that. And I say, yeah, well, my heart and soul went into Pandora, because it was also very cathartic for me as, my inner 13-year-old who didn't know, have the snappy comeback, who didn't know, how to tie my shoelace. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know
Yeah.
you don't know if you're coming or going at the age of 13. And you're beset by your peers and cruelty from other kids, and you don't know what you're doing. Well, Pandora also doesn't know what she's doing, but she has to save the world, so she's got to figure it out. So it was very, very cathartic for me. But these books are written with a lot of wit and humor, very funny and exciting, death and cliffhangers and cool tools and gods and goddesses and creatures and temples and togas, and it's and boys love it too. But it's action adventure for girls and boys.
Right. And like most books, a lot of them make it to the big screen. I got to believe there's got to be a goal to get these books onto the big screen someday.
Sure. Yeah, actually Nickelodeon has it right now. So it might start out being an animated series, because the time is ripe. A fabulous animated series with 3 of the most diverse tweens on the planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to your stage performances, though. One in particular, Survival of the Unfit.
Yeah.
Your character, Shirley, you've often described her, well, I mean, it's pretty much what she is. She's very complicated. So talk about doing that performance and talk about playing Shirley. Because,
well, I just literally came home from doing this about a month and a half ago. I was 7 weeks in the Berkshires doing this for the Great Barrington Public Theater.
Yeah.
And it was directed by Matthew Penn, and it was written by Oren Safdie with a fabulous cast. It was a 4-hander, so four people in this play total. And it was start to finish one of the best experiences of my life. And it was basically kind of guess who's coming to dinner meets the worst meet the parents moment in anyone's life. Yeah. My husband and I are kind of at cross purposes. We've grown apart. And we've got this 39-year-old son who is living in our attic, and I keep teasing him that I'm going to kick him out when he's 40, but in reality, Shirley's, he's kind of, she's not going to let him go
Right.
because he sort of lives for him. But all the women that he brings home, none of them measure up to Shirley's, expectation. And
Right.
so she has put the kibosh on all of them. Well, he's starting to really sort of feel his power now. And he brings home this, it takes place on the eve of this dinner party. And he's bringing home this girl, and Shirley is about to just, rip her to shreds. What do you want with it? What do you want from my son?
Yeah.
And this young girl gives it right back to her. And Shirley is not expecting that, because she's used to being this fulcrum, this dynamic force for what she thinks is the good in her son's life. But she's like a tornado. She's devastating. And yet now she's met her match. And so it's a comedy that takes a very dark turn.
And
it's wonderful.
I also think too, Carolyn, that Shirley has always believed that she's her son's number one woman in
Of course. Oh, well, of course. Absolutely.
his life.
Absolutely. There's
now,
no one,
yeah,
who's going to love you the way I do.
Yeah. And this is the first time.
No one measures up.
So, I mean,
no one measures up.
What is it like though, when you're doing this night in and night out? Because I mean, you've got audiences. I mean, the story is great. I mean, the writing is tremendous, and the way the performers go out there and they just do it so effortlessly, or it looks like it anyway. I mean, that has to be just an unbelievable. I don't think you could get the same rush doing a show. Like, you love doing General Hospital, but the rush isn't there like it is when you're on stage like that.
This show was written so almost perfectly. It was just about a perfect play. So it was 85 minutes of joy every night, even the really profound and ugly moments, the moments of great laughter and mirth, the needling, the twists and the turns of this play, for me, and knowing, because Shirley's the arc of this character is huge. And then the thing with a play is that you've got the audience, if it's done well, and this play was done to a turn, the audience is right here.
Yeah.
Right here. Almost every single moment of this play. And knowing that the audience is right here, and what you can do with them if you service the play well, you can, you take them up and down and spin them around. But finding new things every single night, because when we started out performing, the performances got richer and deeper, and we found new things every night, so that when we closed, and hopefully we will open again if someone is smart and picks this up and goes into New York City, because we had standing ovations every night. It was like one of the darlings of this particular the Berkshire arts community this past summer. So finding that richness every show, and the differences every show, and the newness every show, it was extraordinary. But knowing that you've got the audience in the palm of your hand, feeling that they are not breathing because they're just waiting to hear and see and feel what happens next. That's an incredibly powerful thing as a performer. That's why we do it,
And I feel like it probably never gets old to you, no matter how many nights you do it, how many standing ovations you get.
Every
night the feeling comes back. Yeah,
I could be doing that play right now and be very, very happy. And hopefully, I'd love to see it go into New York City. I'd love to see it go on tour. Yeah. I'd love to go with it. So there.
And I'm sure, Carolyn, like anything else, it's really cool, and it means a lot when you're recognized for your hard work. And another production you did was called Masterclass, and you received the Best Actress in that play, and that had to feel great. Your character, Maria, I mean,
Maria Callas,
yeah, everybody raved about her. But like I said, when you are being recognized for the performances you put in, I don't care if you're 11 years old, if you're 40 years old, that feels great. I mean, it has to.
Well, it's in no small respect, it's why we do what we do. I
Yeah.
mean, otherwise we're acting in a vacuum. Otherwise we're acting for ourselves, and come on. We want to know acting in its acting used to be holy. The Greeks actors were holy men. They interpreted the gods, and this is what the gods are saying to mankind. Well, in a some small way, we're still doing that. It's educating and it's entertaining. You look at something like Shirley, and it's like, don't let this happen to you. You look at something like Mrs. Valentine, don't let this happen to you. What are you going to learn? What are you going to take from this particular characterization? And are you going to apply it to your life? Are you going to shun it? Are you going to take elements? Are you going to say, wow, this woman behaved like this, and this is the result, and I don't ever want to have that in my life? Is it a comedy? You're just going to simply laugh and say, wow, isn't that funny? Entertain and educate,
Right.
you know? That's why we do it. So yes, when the audience comes up to you and says something like, I really want to learn more about Maria Callas, fantastic. That's great. Or when someone looks at Shirley and says, God, you are just awful in the best way.
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's you are broadening someone's expectation of life. You are broadening someone's horizon if
Right.
it's done well and authentically and with good intention. Even if it's the most miserable character on the planet.
Right.
That's a cautionary tale. And you get to play these awful characters and get paid. you
Right.
know, you get you get the joy of exploring the the awfulness of life, which you have to understand that we all have. Because
Right.
if you don't think we all have that, then I got news for you. You're wrong. It's We all have it. We all have it. And if you deny it and you try and tamp it down, that's when you go home and it's going to come out in other ways anyway, because we all suffer the hardships of life.
Yeah.
So as actors, we're very lucky. We get to explore it, work it out, and not have to bring it home with us.
Right.
And so it's great. It's great.
And I mentioned before that on stage you have to sing. A lot of stages singing, and there's a song that has been popular called "Something Cool," and many have sang that. But it was basically Claiborne Carey who
Claiborne
really,
Carrier.
yeah, when he sang it, you really like. It was something about the way he put it together that really inspired you.
Well, yeah, Claiborne did something very interesting when they sang it. Um, they performed it. They
Yeah.
actually didn't just sing the song. They 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 performed the arc of this particular story, and I have done that as well. Or I yeah, I've done that as well, but I've made it my own. And it's basically kind of like if you think about Blanche Dubois and Streetcar Named Desire. So sort of think about Blanche and Blanche's story, this sort of woman who's at a bar and kind of maybe she's a little it's very hot outside, and it's she's not a young thing anymore, but someone offers to buy her a drink, and then she goes off into this reverie about what might have been and what could have been.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful story within this particular song. Yeah, yeah, I'm having the best time doing my cabaret show. Wonderful time doing my cabaret show. And it changes, every cabaret show is different, because you add songs and you take away, you see what works and what doesn't work. I would like to tour the world singing. which I think I could do on a Viking cruise line. That's all I'm going to say about that.
You know, back to acting a little bit. Another show that you were very popular in, and it's a very popular Disney show. It's still popular to this day, even though it's been off the air. And of course, that's the show Jessie. And
Jessie, yeah.
Mrs. Chesterfield. I mean, you were so hysterical on that show. And you know, I had been watching you on General Hospital, and I said to myself, "There's no way she could be funny on this show." But boy, you pleasantly surprised me because you were hilarious. I mean, throughout that series, and that show to this day. I mean, there's generations of kids right now who are 7 or 8 years old, and they're watching that show somewhere. They love it. So
They are, and there are kids who are in their 20s or late teens who I will see at restaurants or bagging groceries who will say, oh, you're Rhoda Chesterfield, and I say, I am.
And say, that must feel
you're good. My childhood. You're my childhood, and it's like, thank you.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but that must make you feel good because you are not defined by one character. I mean, no. General Hospital fans will know you as Diane Miller. Sure. Jessie fans will know you as Mrs. Mrs. Chesterfield. Dawson Creek fans will know you as Mrs. Valentine. Then there's all the stage performances. And I mean, that has to make you feel good that you've been able to play different characters. And somebody could see you at the grocery store and go, you're Diane Miller. Somebody could say, Mrs. Chesterfield.
You're Barb, from Cougar Town, or you were in Revenge, or And it's like, yes, I like to say I appeal to many demographics.
Yeah. So talk about your time on that show, because that really was, in a lot of ways, I mean, one of Disney's best shows at the time. I mean, it really was.
It was at the time. It usually a lot of Disney shows like that, they only got three seasons.
Yeah.
But Jessie got 4 because it was so popular. And I think of the recurring characters, I think the most popular, I believe, because again, I was this sort of larger than life. I was her nemesis. I was, as played by Debbie Ryan, I was Jessie's nemesis. Yeah. And I, they had me dressed in these colorful, these off the charts, bizarre, these costumes, and with this little dog. And I was always doing these awful things to her. But again, every show getting the comeuppance. And I was in love with their butler, and that was, never going to go anywhere. But it was a lot of fun. But yeah, kids loved it. And again, it's a cautionary tale. Don't be mean, because you will get your just desserts. But yeah, it's wonderful. And I had the best time on that show. And Pam Eales, who created that show, and who directed some of them, knew she's a genius. And she's actually to this day a very, very dear friend of mine from that show. She's just a living, breathing genius. She knew exactly she knew the audience, and she knew Debbie Ryan. She knew all 4 of those kids. And we miss Cameron Boyce so much to this day. He was just such an incredible talent. But the other 3 kids are doing really, really well. Karn Brar and Peyton List and Sky Jackson. So, and talk about great kids. They all weathered being child stars. Some of them still are. But they're coming into kind of young adulthood, and they're still just extraordinary human beings. So
yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
Away from acting and performing for a bit, the work you've done with the American Humane Association, I mean, it's remarkable. And you received the Celebrity Ambassador Award, I think in 2011 or 12, which is something to be very proud of, because the work you've done, with that, to me, is probably your greatest legacy, because that's making a difference every day. And I mean, you are doing something for these, to protect the animals, which I think is something that I will never understand. I don't want to get into a whole thing about this, but anytime that somebody could hurt an animal, I
think we should get into it. Yeah, absolutely. Get into the whole thing about hurting an animal, and why do we even need the American Humane? Well, we do. And it's an extraordinary organization. But yes, I love being an ambassador for American Humane. Animals, they have no voice. even more than young children. They have no voice, and it is incumbent upon us as human beings to be the voice for the voiceless. And because they can only
Carolyn, was there one thing?
express pain.
Was there
Yeah.
one particular incident or circumstance where you wanted to be involved with this? I mean, was there something you saw that just disturbed you so much that you said,
Yeah,
I
yeah. Well, I had already become involved thanks to my animal advocacy mentor, a man named Dr. Gray Stafford, who's, as far as I'm concerned, he's a saint. He should be canonized. And he sort of has led me to understand the ins and outs of the world of animal advocacy. But there was I remember a moment that really galvanized me. I was sent a video by another wonderful human named Nick Marks, who runs the Wildlife Alliance in Cambodia, right outside of Phnom Penh. And he takes care of these wonderful elephants, some of whom have, stepped on landmines left over from the Khmer Rouge. And so he takes care of these elephants with, 3 legs and 1 prosthetic, and the husbandry and training these animals and with positive reinforcement training. But he sent a video around about a town in Uttarakhand, India, who had trapped a leopardess who, because, humans are now encroaching on there are almost no more wild spaces on the planet, and because we keep encroaching. But this leopard was trying to feed her young, and she happened to go into this village, and I think it was the 3rd time that she went into this village, and they caught her, and they put her in a cage, and they poured gasoline on her. And I will let your imagination take it from there. But fortunately, there was no. I watched this video without sound, thank God. But I was forever changed after watching what was done to this leopardess. And people were trying to find this town and these people and hold them accountable for doing this to this animal that was just trying to find food for its young. Because everyone, caught it. They videotaped it. And so I said, I never need to see another animal abuse video, because nothing could be as bad as that. And so I said, and once I stopped sobbing, which took me a few days to stop sobbing, because at the very end, all you saw was this animal that was still alive, and it was smoldering. So think about that. I said, I will never go back to, and by the way, I think it was that town that was buried in an avalanche in Uttarakhand, India. I'm hoping it was that town. That's right. I said that. But there was a huge landslide in India, and I think it was in Uttarakhand. It was in Uttarakhand, and I think it was that town. So, karma's a bitch. But I said, but that was something that I said, there, people just, I have to redouble, quadruple my efforts to get people to stop abusing animals. There are no bad dogs. There are no bad animals. There are only bad people who treat these animals badly. And they are not here for our abuse. If you want to eat a steak, that's fine. Try and let's figure out a way to humanely. It would take more money, and there are people, in positions of power that don't even want us to eat meat now. Well, that's not going to happen. But let's see if we can go the way of Temple Grandin and humanely care for and then slaughter. Do you know what I mean? So that we know that we have done at least everything we can to treat our animal brethren humanely, because we lose 150 species a day on this planet. Sometimes they're amoebas, and sometimes they're the, West African white rhinoceros, the apex animals to the smallest. But pretty soon we're not going to have anything left if we do not start taking stewardship on a larger scale than we do now. Because once we lose the elephants,
No.
We're not far behind. Once we lose the apex, the metaterrestrials and the metamarines, we're not far behind. We're just not. So.
And I mean, Carolyn, does it kind of frustrate you and disgust you at the same time that someone like Michael Vick got a second chance to play football? I mean, when you watch, I saw that special. I think Brian Gumbel did a special on the dog ring fight, and then just why I watched 10 seconds of that. I had to turn it off because
I wouldn't like to be in a room with Michael Vick.
Yeah.
Because I'd give him a piece of my mind, for sure. Yeah, no, I don't. Michael Vick does not deserve.
Right.
Because here's the thing: if Michael Vick were not caught, he'd still be doing it. That's my opinion. That's only my opinion. I don't think I am wrong. I could be, but we'll never know because Michael Vick was caught. And I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, well yeah, I don't know. I am dubious about that. I don't know that he would have ever had that epiphany if he had not been caught. I'll never know. But no, I don't think Michael Vick should have ever been given a second chance.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Carol.
That's me.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you have produced and hosted a podcast about talk about that a little bit, because that's a great thing that you do as well.
I haven't done it for a while. I am planning on getting back into it. It was called Animal Magnetism.
Right.
And it was all about real world problems with real world solutions, not activist solutions, not destroying zoos, understanding the necessity these days, the mandatory aspect for zoos as the last arcs of preservation of gene pools, of species, if we were to ever find a space where we could clear out some humans and repopulate the West African white rhinoceros in a space. Yes, we have the gene pools because of the arcs of preservation that are certain zoos, that are certain modern zoos and aquariums, not the roadside attractions, not the cruel zoos of the cement enclosures of a bygone era, but the ones that are really very habitat specific. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I kind of get overwhelmed with all of this. Tell me your question again.
Yeah, the podcast.
Animal magnetism. Yeah. So it was advocacy based, not activist based. So in other words, I am not a fan of PETA because I've done a lot of research into PETA, and I understand what PETA is and what PETA isn't. And as far as I'm concerned, PETA is not an animal advocacy organization at all, because they just want to, just shut down the zoos and let's all walk down Main Street hand in hand with the animals and the tigers, the leopards and the elephants. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I also know that Ingrid Newkirk is on record as having stated the things that she likes to do with animals in terms of sending them off to their great reward, and that so many people have been kind of hoodwinked by that propaganda piece called Blackfish. Which was basically 85% a lie, start to finish. And people bought into that because, when it comes to animals, you don't want to see the bad. You don't want to see the cruelty, because life for humans is cruel enough. Why do we want to delve into that? Oh, if there's an organization out there that says it's for the ethical treatment, they're going to handle it. No, they're not. No, they aren't. This is, again, my opinion. Yeah. Because anyone who's going to go and pour chlorine into dolphin tanks at SeaWorld, that's not an animal advocacy organization. That's not an organization that loves animals. Anyone that's going to have that, because you look at PETA and you can't point to a policy or a building or a law, anything that they have done for the betterment of animals. In fact, this is an organization that will steal dogs off front porches and then kill them, and then give the family, when the family actually has the temerity to stand up and say, you took my dog, send a fruit basket. That's on record. So my podcast was about real world problems and real world solutions. Who are the people who are actually trying to make a difference for animals, conserving species, going out and stopping animal trafficking. Where are the spay and neuter success stories? Why do we need to spay and neuter? Why do we need to go into certain cultural communities that refuse to spay and neuter their dogs? And why should we try and work with these communities in order to tell them why we need to do it, why it's not a good thing that they have these, pit bulls and other dogs that are not spayed and neutered. That it's not a badge of honor. Do you know what I mean? That there are, getting people to understand that at any given time on the, in history, well, right, certainly right now, there are more dogs and cats, dogs in the United States than there are people on the planet. And that's just in the United States. And that's basically roughly 10 billion in the United States.
Yeah.
So of course we want to spay and neuter. What are the zoos that are doing the best work? Why is Ringling Brothers what about their elephant program that is pro and con? It's not just all negative. That there are forces out there that are actually working. The Sheldrick Institute. Why is SeaWorld actually a fabulous organization? Has anybody bothered to actually do a deep dive, or are they going to believe the hype? You know what I mean? So that's what, and all the animal magnetisms, I think, are still up on my YouTube channel, and you can go back and listen to all of them. And I pull no punches. And again, Grace Stafford was one of my co-hosts. Andrea Compton, a very dear friend and a wonderful animal advocate, was one of my producer and co-host. And we really delved a lot into the advocacy world, and I like to think that we made some small difference. But again, I'm planning on getting back into that, because I don't care who I offend.
Yeah, well, you're doing it for a good cause, which
of course,
great. It's like I said. Nobody should ever treat an animal.
No, saving them is not just saving them; it's also saving us. It's saving.
Right.
So.
It's funny. In December of 2006, Carolyn, what was supposed to be just a 3-day or a 3-episode, gig for you has turned into 18 years of wonderful, write-in, wonderful storylines. Diane Miller on General Hospital is one of the classic. She may be the greatest attorney they've ever had, and that's saying something with Scotty Baldwin.
Oh my gosh,
Rick
Alexis Chavis, of course.
Yeah.
No, Diane, no.
Yeah.
Diane's the best.
But
Absolutely.
here's the thing though, that had to be like, for you, just wow. The two people you're working with right off the bat in the first few months are Maurice Bernard and Steve Burton, because your characters representing their characters. And the funny thing about Diane, I always say this, it didn't matter who she represented. Most of the time she got them acquitted. I think of AJ Quartermain.
All the time.
Yeah. This guy was, AJ Quartermain was on the run for 7 years. They thought he was dead. He had all these kidnapping charges, and she just says a few things in a matter of 5 minutes, and he's free. And the thing I loved about the character, though, was really a lot of times the interaction with Damien Spinelli, which you also wrote a book about, The Secret Life of Damien Spinelli.
I did indeed. Yeah. No, Damien, they asked me because they knew I had some modicum of success with Pandora. And that was Jill Phelps and Bob Guza at that time. And they said, we want a book, a fictional account of all the characters on the canvas at that particular time. I think that was 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
And so would you please write this? And I said, okay, yeah, but I'm going to do it in a series of like 17 short stories And from his perspective as the jackal, as this Sam Spade, Dashiell Hammett, 1940s kind of gumshoe, kind of fast talking, wisecracking guy. And that was so much fun. That was a wonderful book. But yeah, you come on that show. Unfortunately, I had not really watched the show up until that point,
Right.
except, during the Luke and Laura, the big wedding and all that. But I had not watched it for years. And it was a good thing I hadn't, because Maurice Benard I would have been incredibly intimidated.
Yeah.
If I'd watched it.
And what I really enjoyed too is it was a segment you did with Bradford one time where Spinelli's naming all the nicknames he gives for everybody, and you're just kind of sitting there observing everything and kind of just like shaking your head like this guy is crazy, But I mean,
Yeah.
again, I always felt like the interaction, especially with Bradford, I really enjoyed that the most. And I mean, you had great interaction with so many of the characters. You mentioned, the Alexis Davis character. Your interaction with Nancy,
Nancy, yeah.
and yeah, because I mean, you two were sometimes, competing against each other, but like the friendship on the show always survived no matter what the situation was. And I just really felt like Diane, she brought humor to that character as well. I mean,
I still do.
yeah, yeah. But I mean,
In fact,
talk about playing this, amazing character for 18 years now.
There's nothing like Diane Miller. She is smart and sassy. She takes no prisoners. She takes no names. She's always right. She's the best lawyer on the planet, in the universe,
Yeah.
pretty much. She loves fiercely. She's a fierce friend. She can talk. She's the Greek chorus of that show. She can say to the other characters what the audience is thinking and is screaming at the television and can't say. Do you know what I mean? But Diane will say it. Diane will say it.
And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Nancy and I just got back, actually not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and we did a 4-city fan tour. Nancy and I did, as Alexis and Diane, these fast friends. And I can't tell you how many times we heard, "We love your relationship. We love your friendship," because you're not just like, 20 somethings, you're broads of a certain age who have been around the block. You don't fight over petty things. You know where the bodies are buried because you buried most of them, and you still love each other. And it's like, yes, we do. And we're good friends off screen as well. So, but I'll tell you, can't tell you how many times, and I agree with this. So many people would love for Diane Miller to be Spinelli's mother.
Yeah, that would be funny. Oh, that really
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. And I thought about this, Carolyn. They brought back the nurses ball about 10 years ago, and I thought to myself, did they ever ask for your input on anything, like for help with anything with your career as a stage performer? I mean,
no. In fact, hopefully, if they bring the nurses ball back this time, hopefully I'll sing.
Yeah, that'd be really
fun, right?
But that character opened so many other doors for you. And another daytime soap that you were on, it was the digital part of it, was The Bay. And finally, I was so happy because you finally got what you deserved when you were awarded the Emmy playing Karen Blackwell. So just talk about what that means, because listen, I got disgusted for years when I saw Susan Lucci not win an Emmy, and it was so great that night when she did, but it had to be a feeling for you when they announced your name.
It was very exciting. I had been nominated for General Hospital, and then I won for The Bay, and then was nominated again for General Hospital, and then twice again for a show called Studio City with Sean King. And I'll tell you this: it doesn't matter if it's for a primetime series or a daytime series or an online series. It's the same statuette.
Yeah, it is.
And your peers, it's exactly it's the Emmy, and they can't take it away from you. You know what I mean? It's
no, they really can't.
Yeah. So it was lovely.
Let me ask you. It's hard to there's so many great storylines you did, but is there one in particular on General Hospital that stands out above all the rest that you did?
Oh my goodness. Maybe the Alexis Davis, Diane, the Attorney of the Year sojourn, where she and Diane and Alexis actually became good friends. They realized they had so
Yeah.
much more in common than they did. Maybe it was the Nina custody, where she's trying to get custody of Wiley,
Yeah.
and Diane has to put Maurice Menard on the stand.
Yeah.
And that is very, very difficult for her. And Maurice and I have talked about that a lot, because he and I love it when we both kind of go deep with each other. It was because it's lovely, because he's a hell of an actor. He's really a hell of an actor.
Yeah.
And that was tough. It was very, very difficult. Of course, then you have the fun part, where she's dating Max, and Max, Max is, Sonny gives Max the 5-carat diamond ring that he's going to give to Carly. Max is going to hold on to it, and Diane thinks it's for her. It's like, what? I mean, there's a lot of humor there too. So,
but him dating Diane finally allowed him to stand up to Sonny. He usually always backed, but when Sonny told him he couldn't date Diane, no, he wasn't happy.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was great storylines. But let me ask you, before we go, Carolyn, it's hard to pick one thing, but what is the thing you're probably most proud about in your career, if you could pick
in my
one?
career? I mean, and we're talking the entire creative career or the acting career?
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. Probably the Pandora series. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think so too, because I mean, just you are, telling a great story, and so many kids are getting to read these books, and parents are appreciative of it because their kids are reading and they enjoy these books. And I would think that is something that, to me, your legacy, you're a great actress, a great stage performer, but your legacy is what you do for these animals. I think that stands out. But as far as your career goes, I would agree with the Pandora.
The Pandora series. No, if I could live my life doing something, trying to make a difference for animals, and actually making a difference for animals, I'd spend my life doing that. As it stands, I'm able to do what I can do for animals because of the platform, thanks to the entertainment industry. So I thank the entertainment industry for that voice. So,
right. Well, Carolyn, this was a lot of fun. I want to thank you for
thank you.
Minutes today. You're a credit to the business.
Thank you.
What you do for the community, for animals everywhere. I mean, I really applaud you for that, and it was a real honor for me. And thank you for giving me
It was an honor for me to speak to you. Thank you so much for going over everything. It was lovely. Thank you for bringing me so much.
And there you have it, folks. Legend in the business. There's nobody like her. I mean, she gives you 150% each and every time she goes out there. And what she does outside of acting and performing, to me, like I said, is what her legacy will be to me. For In the Spotlight, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.